go ahead and start. Because we got everybody that's here.
Yeah.
We're racing with we must have now. Plus.
Holy
St. Joseph.
very blessed.
The Father and Son and Holy Ghost. Okay. Well, Thomas is on. I just wanted to thank you for your question. You had one of the questions yesterday was bringing up since wasn't this a battle? It was a battle in which Napoleon used artillery to break the ice and it caused a lot of the Catholics. And yes, that's absolutely true. That was at Austerlitz, and that was one of his bigger victories over basically the Austrians, and the Russians were there too. And the Austrians were retreating over a frozen lake. It wasn't a river; it was a lake. They were going over the lake, and Napoleon used artillery to break the ice. And 2,000 Austrians froze to death, drowned and froze to death in that lake.
So they basically just sink into the lake.
Yeah, they just and then what the next thing that happened, and this is where my mind was kind of, because this has happened when Napoleon was retreating back from Russia, and there was a battle of Berezina, and they were retreating. And to Thomas's point, Napoleon had actually burnt the bridges to keep the Russian army from following. But during this, it was just complete chaos. As a matter of fact, in France, if they say that was we would say that's a dumpster fire. When we wanted this is just completely chaotic. They actually in France they use the term Berezina. So that's a Berezina because that was like the big calamity, mess up forever. And so the French army was trying to retreat across that river. Too much weight, the ice breaks. 30,000 of them died from drowning. That's a lot of people to lose in that thing. And then because Napoleon burned the bridges, he actually ended up leaving 10,000 behind, and basically pretty much just getting rounded up by the Russians. I mean, at that point, most of them had just thrown their weapons away, and they were just dying out there. So I just thought I'd share that with you, Thomas. Okay, so let's see where did we end up? We ended off with the Russian campaign, and then after, so when he gets back there, he's completely bled out his army. So he goes back to Napoleon, and now the Allies, they're thinking, okay, we're gonna get this guy, even while Napoleon is in the process of retreating from Russia. Tsar Alexander is already working to assemble the Sixth Coalition, and he says, I think we can beat this guy. So he gets Russia, Great Britain, he gets Sweden as a new player, and haven't seen them in any of the coalitions, but they've joined. And he gets much of the German states to join in there. So now, and what's interesting is in Austria, Metternich, who was a very clever fellow, Metternich, and he basically decides we're going to wait and watch. We basically had our head handed to us at Austerlitz, and so we're going to wait and watch. So Napoleon then goes and he has 5 victories in Germany, but he's bleeding out. Metternich can actually see this too. He says that you can only keep this up for so long. You're going to run out of Frenchmen. And so Metternich says, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll arrange an armistice because we've been neutral here. We'll arrange the armistice. But if I do that, you've got to agree to some protocols that basically you're going to exchange, like we get to keep this, that, you're going to, expect that. Napoleon basically says, no way. Beat you once, I'll beat you again. I think Napoleon needs to figure out what he's got left. He's running out of resources here. But anyway, he says he refuses. So then Austria joins the Sixth Coalition, declares war in France. Now the coalition kind of like balloons up to 800,000 soldiers with all the different players that are involved. Napoleon has 300,000 soldiers. And by the way, none of them are veterans. Because what happened to his veteran army just the year before in 1812? They're all dead. So I'm actually using a conservative number when I say Russia went in with 400,000, 420,000. I've seen estimates as high as 500,000 because he was actually recruiting some people along the way to join him in this army. So I think it was 420,000 Frenchmen and about 80,000 other people that were coming along, other people that wanted to participate in this fun activity. Yeah. So anyway, the war of the Sixth Coalition. After the Austrians joined them, now the French are way outnumbered, and you can see that they sort of are fighting, and when they finally at the time after the Battle of Hanover had this victory, this is about the time when the Austrians join. They have the Battle of Leipzig, and it is a huge defeat for Napoleon. He gets clobbered, 128,000. If you've only got 300,000, you've lost over a third of your people. Remember, if you lose 20 to 30% of your, this is, I guess maybe this is 20th century, figuring out military stuff. But we've always thought if you lose between 20 and 30%, you're combat ineffective. You're no longer capable of running combat operations. That was the way I was trained.
But you still have like 80% to 70%.
Yeah, he's losing. Yeah, he's losing way over that. But, I mean, when he came out of Moscow, he lost the 1812 invasion in Russia. He probably lost about 97% of his army, the Grand Army. So, and then there's a series of these. And again, he's a very good general, and he fights and he wins most of the time. But there's always going to be. You can see he's just bleeding out here. And notice how a lot of these names are starting to turn into French names. Brienne, Rothier, Champa. That's because he's now being pushed into France. And he's fighting these battles. They're defensive battles, and he's fighting. Finally, he's going to get pushed all the way back to pretty much Paris. So after the Sixth Coalition, he's now done. His combat dead. He started out with basically just over 300,000, and of course he's recruiting along the way because he's trying to replace him. But he loses 363,000 in 10 months. I mean, maybe he's not. I mean, I guess maybe because I was a soldier, this just blows my mind to have those type of casualties, and we're going to keep this up. The British and the Spanish forces defeat the French and drive them out of Spain and southern Portugal. But there's very few French down there to defend it because they're all up there dealing with Napoleon, trying to deal with it, the coalition. So they pretty much get run of there. So Napoleon, he's now pressured into Paris. He knows he doesn't have an army that's left. He's done. So he abdicates, and they grab him and they send him to Elba, which is a little island. It's just south of the French border. You got the French Riviera down there, and just I don't know, about 40, 50 miles south of that, you've got the island Elba. Great climate. You should have just stayed there. Me, give me a beach umbrella, full beer. Sun comes up, sun comes down. I can do that. I could do that. I don't have to. I don't want the world. That would be enough world for me. So 4 months. So he goes to Elba, but immediately he immediately starts planning his comeback. This is like a terrier. He just will not give up. Any of you have pet dogs?
No.
No, you have one. What kind?
Maltese European.
Oh, okay. So okay. I don't know that breed. Anyway, my parents had a terrier, and I just would you just shoot that dog? I'm so tired of taking care of it. Anyway. So 4 months later, he basically returns. They managed to dodge the British fleet that's trying to police this thing. They dodge them, they get on land, and then he basically is working his way up as he goes up through from Marseille, and he goes up. He's collecting more and more troops are joining him. first time he gets any resistance is to a place called Grenoble. And even then, they just finally throw in with him. So then he ends up, the army, they march with him until they, as he's assembling his people, they go to Paris. And he takes the government again. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, you've got Metternich, who's having the Congress in Vienna with his quadruple alliance, which the big four players, Great Britain, Austria, Russia, and Russia.
Well, where is Prussia?
Well, Prussia is the part of, we would look at that as northern Germany, up around here. That would, it came, what Berlin is.
Yeah.
So Prussia was basically this kind of like, it looked like a little bit like a sock in there, but that was Prussia.
Oh.
And they were separate. Now, what happens after all of this, when Germany becomes a one country, then Prussia is in there, but they still have a lot of influence. They still control.
So Prussia is gone today, or
no? There's no Prussia today. Prussia is part of Germany, and also down in those days, you had Bavaria, which was a separate kingdom, part of Germany. So there was 38 little states too. They were all the electors. They were all, the only thing that kind of organized them all was they were part of the Holy Roman Empire. And then now you've seen, it was after the third coalition. Third coalition. They basically, after Austerlitz, Napoleon says, sets up the Confederation of the Rhine. So all those 38 electoral votes would have gone to him to become the new emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, and that's when Franz II, current Holy Roman Emperor, he dissolves the empire. He says, if the Habsburgs can't have it, no one can have it. So that was basically. So, and it was just kind of a little in your face. But yeah, Germany, and now I've got another slide here. I'll show you on it. It shows you kind of like how the countries, how many countries that we have now versus how many countries we had then, and it's kind of interesting to see. Maybe
all the small countries.
Well, what happens is up to about World War I, with the colonialization of places like Africa and South America and stuff like that, they were all they had been basically primitive people, but what you define as a country with borders and they can put together an army, that type of thing. There were relatively few. You had the Holy Roman Empire. Spain controlled a lot of the stuff. Africa was basically just under colony. The British, you consider India part of Great Britain at that point. And you'll see. I'll show you my little slide on that thing. I think it's kind of interesting how trends are going. So so while all this was going on, you had the Metternich is up there running. He's putting together his vision of the new Europe, and he says this concert of Europe. By the way, later on you're going to be hearing the concert of Poland when the Russians, Alexander's going to try to mimic this and try to set things up in Poland that way. But anyway, so Metternich is kind of like, he says, we're going to restore the boundaries before the French Revolution as much as we can. We're going to try to settle disputes without war. I mean, he's actually thinking through what would have become the United Nations. That's kind of his vision. And you'll see later on, Metternich's vision shows up in the League of Nations, which is about World War I, which then becomes the United Nations after World War II. So, I mean, this vision is in play now. And he says, the concert of Europe is going to decide the future of France. We're kind of like done with Napoleon. The French don't seem to be able to come up with a good solution, so we're going to make a decision for them. And so they're meeting in Vienna. So the concert of Europe is meeting as the Congress of Vienna. I guess I don't know why the two different words. And the four main players are the Quadruple Alliance. You might want to remember who who was in the Quadruple Alliance? That's that might be a question you're going to hear. Who was in that? And the answer is it was Austria, Russia, Prussia, and Great Britain. They're the four main powers in Europe at that time. So Elba then, so Napoleon returns to France. He evades the British. He lands in 1815. And it only takes him 100 days, 3 months, to completely reconstitute his government and an army of 200,000 men. You gotta give the guy credit. He shoots, moves, and communicates.
Yeah.
Very, very effectively. Doesn't know when to cash in. It's one of the most important things to ever learn about life. Is it's you got to know when to leave the party. Congress declares that Napoleon is an outlaw because they're still doing their business up there. Meanwhile, Napoleon goes up. It's kind of like, oh, again. But they basically declare him an outlaw, and they put together the Seventh Coalition, which is, of course, going to be everybody, because now they're all part of the Quadruple Alliance with all of the smaller players in Germany. So now Napoleon, whereas he used to have at least somebody who had his back, now nobody. He's got the whole thing. So it's completely lopsided. Well, then Napoleon basically, once they've declared war, he again takes the initiative and he goes up. And this is in Belgium. So Belgium is right along this, Holland, and then Belgium is right below it. It's kind of the flatlands there. So he goes in there and they have the Battle of Ligny, and there's actually 4 battles. There's 3 battles that are going on at the same time. It gets this name. He pulls it off, but he loses 33,000 men. This is out of an army of how big? 200. You're looking at it basically 15%. You're gone. He loses another 5%. He is combat ineffective, right? So then they set up the Battle of Waterloo gets set up, and now the Allies, he took the initiative and was kind of caught them by surprise. Then now they're getting themselves organized, the Prussians, and there are movies on this that you can watch and get a pretty good feel for what was going on in the battle. There were some very dramatic scenes going on there. I'm just going to get that. And the French, in 2 days, they lose 86,000 people because they lose 52K on day 2, which is the Battle of Waterloo.
In 2 days?
In 2 days, they lost 86,000. I mean, we had some bad days in this country, like in the Civil War up at Gettysburg. But that's about what you're looking. But that's both sides. You count the casualties both north and south. Probably we hit about 80,000. This is one side. So, and then the other thing that happens is that this is we'll forget about Murat. That's not going to be on the test. Don't worry about Murat. I just like the pun. He ratted, and then he re-ratted. He just didn't matter. Just no loyalty at all. And that's the battle. That's if you wanted to look at a pictorial battle of Waterloo. And the first battle at Ligny, Quatre Bras, and Vavre, which is basically that's the first 3, and then they get clobbered at Waterloo. So that's it. So that's pretty much what you're going to see on the test. You got any questions for me?
So after the test, we're not going to go to the next chapter, right?
What we're going to do, we're going to take a little pause here, a little break. So we're going to test on Monday. I'll grade them that night, and then I'll come in and we'll go over the questions the next day on Tuesday. Wednesday. So Tuesday we take the test. Wednesday we kind of go over it. Thursday, you have the day off.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then what will happen when we come back? So we've kind of gone through. We've gone through over 300 years of material in the first semester, we'll be doing about 250 years next time. There's a lot that goes on in the 19th and 20th centuries. There's a lot that goes on. And you'll see that the United States is starting to play more right in this question there. I'm a little bit of a World War II history buff. I like that, you know. So maybe one under sidebars. You've got the slide deck here.
Yep.
So you pretty much have what I think is the most important take-home points. And then you've got the other slide deck that I also did in red from chapters 5 and 6. I'll tell you that probably 1/3 of the questions are going to be from the previous 5 and 6, and 2/3 of the questions are going to be from 7 and 8. And it's the first couple of pages in chapter 9. I just wanted to finish Napoleon. In chapter 9, you finally finish Napoleon on basically page 250. That's where we're done. So I've read this book. I've finished kept all Napoleon and the Napoleon chain. Okay. Well, what do you want to do? Take a break? Okay.
Well, by the way, Mr. Ram, can you please send me the previous test? No, the previous quiz that we took. Okay.
Is that good enough? Because I can send it to.
Yeah, that's fine.
All righty then. I'm going to turn you guys loose. I gotta go duck some business.
Thank you.